There is a moment in life where everything seems to fall apart at the same time. The relationship that seems solid ends out of nowhere. The job that paid the bills disappears. Financial security evaporates. And in the midst of this hurricane, a single question echoes in the mind. What did I do wrong? Guilt sets in quickly. The feeling of being punished. The certainty that something is deeply wrong, not with life, but with the person themselves. And the more the chaos intensifies, the more this narrative strengthens. I'm not good enough. I don't deserve it. I'm paying for something, but what if that's not the right question? What if chaos is not punishment, but rather the most intelligent mechanism in the universe performing a quantum realignment in the frequency of life? Think of it this way. When an old building needs to be transformed into something bigger, it's not just renovated. It needs to be demolished first. The walls come down. The structure crumbles. It looks like destruction, but it's preparation. Chaos in life works the same way. It's not the universe punishing. It's the quantum field recalibrating vibrational reality to match the highest version of who the person is becoming. And here's what most people don't understand. Chaos doesn't appear because something went wrong. It appears because something went right. Because the internal frequency has shifted. And when the frequency shifts, everything that no longer resonates with this new vibration needs to go. If life seems to be falling apart these past few months, if relationships have ended, opportunities have vanished, or security has crumbled, this video will reveal something essential. Chaos is not the end. It is the energetic adjustment before coherence. In the next few minutes, it will be revealed. Why does chaos appear exactly when someone is about to evolve? How the quantum field uses disintegration to create realignment. The energetic signs that confirm that the realignment is happening now, and most importantly, how to go through this process without fear, resistance, or self-sabotage. Because when quantum science meets practical spirituality, one truth emerges. Chaos is not destruction. It is calibration, and calibration always comes before transformation. Quantum physics has revealed something that completely changes the way we understand reality. Everything vibrates, not metaphorically, literally. Every atom in the body, every thought in the mind, every emotion in the chest emits a specific frequency, and these frequencies create electromagnetic fields that constantly interact with the surrounding quantum field. This field isn't empty, it's intelligent, responsive, and always seeking coherence. Coherence is when someone's internal frequency is aligned with the frequency of the reality they wish to experience. When there is coherence, things flow. Opportunities arise. Synchronicities multiply. Life seems to conspire in one's favor. But when there is incoherence, when the internal frequency still carries old patterns, limiting beliefs, unprocessed traumas, the field needs to act, and that's where chaos appears. Because chaos isn't random. It's the vibrational process that removes everything that no longer resonates with the new frequency being activated. It's like when a GPS recalculates a route. The person was following a path, but something changed. The destination was updated. For a few seconds, the system has to reprocess all the variables: traffic, distance, new possibilities. During this time, there's no clear route. It seems like the GPS lost its way, but it didn't. It's calculating a better path. Life does the same. When consciousness expands, when there is a deep decision to evolve, when the soul asks for more, the quantum field responds by rearranging external reality to reflect the internal frequency that is being activated. And this reorganization, it looks like chaos. Relationships that no longer vibrate at the same frequency dissolve, jobs that kept a person in an old identity disappear, financial patterns based on scarcity collapse, not because something went wrong, But because something went right, the frequency has changed, and anything that can't keep up with this new vibration needs to go. Here's what this means in practice. Imagine someone who spent years operating on the frequency of "I'm not enough." Relationships reflected this. Jobs reflected this. Money reflected this. Everything was consistent with this frequency of insufficiency. But then something changes. Maybe it's a profound decision. Maybe it's a spontaneous awakening. Maybe it's simply the complete exhaustion of the old identity. The person decides internally, "I deserve more." And this decision isn't superficial. It resonates in the deepest layers of our being. It's a real, physical, measurable frequency shift. Joe Dispenza explains it clearly. When someone truly shifts internally, the surrounding field has to rearrange the external particles to match the new energetic information. This rearrangement is literal, it's physical, and often, it's uncomfortable, because now the field needs to remove everything that was sustained by the frequency of insufficiency. And that includes people, places, jobs, opportunities, everything that only existed because the person vibrated at that old frequency. The field doesn't do this to cause pain. It does this to create space. Space for relationships based on self-worth. Space for purpose-based work. Space for financial abundance based on merit. But it is necessary, because it's not possible to enter a new reality carrying the vibrational baggage of the old one. The field forces a choice. Either the person lets go of what no longer serves them, or they remain trapped in the frequency that no longer represents them. And here's the part that confuses most. Realignment happens internally first, then externally. The frequency shift occurs within, but the effects appear outside. And there's a gap between these two moments. A space of time where everything seems to be falling apart, but in fact it's just rearranging itself. This gap is chaos, and the faster the internal frequency shift, the more abrupt the external chaos appears. Not because the universe is in a hurry, but because the disconnect between the new frequency and the old reality becomes so great that the field has no choice but to quickly rearrange everything. Chaos is the universe's way of asking, "Are you ready for this?" And the answer doesn't need to be in words. It comes in surrender, in permission, in letting the field do what it needs to do. Because quantum realignment isn't smooth. It's not linear. And it's definitely not comfortable, but it's always the preparation for something bigger. There is a problem. The human brain is programmed to survive, not to evolve. And survival means one thing: predictability. The brain loves patterns, routines, the familiar. Even if the familiar is limiting, painful, or suffocating, it's safe. And safety for the nervous system is a top priority. Therefore, when the quantum field begins the realignment process, the brain panics. Because realignment means change. And change means unpredictability. And unpredictability activates the internal alarm system that interprets everything as danger. Then the brain starts creating narratives. This is punishment. I did something wrong. I am not worthy. I am being tested. But none of these narratives are real. They're just stories the mind creates to try to make sense of the chaos. Because the brain needs explanations. It can't simply accept that something is rearranging itself without labeling it as good or bad. And most of the time, he labels it as bad. Think of a child learning to walk. They fall, they get up. They fall again. To the adults around them, this is progress. But if the child could verbalize what they're feeling, they'd probably say they're failing. That something is wrong. That they should be able to walk perfectly the first time. This is exactly how the brain interprets vibrational realignment. He sees the stumble, the fall, the instability, and he cries out, "Danger! Go back to where you were." But going back isn't an option, because the frequency has already changed. The person no longer fits into their old life. Trying to force a return to normal is like trying to stuff an adult into baby clothes. It won't work, and you'll hurt yourself in the process. Here's what happens neurologically. The brain has established neural pathways that have been reinforced by years of repetition. These pathways are like paved roads, easy to navigate, automatic without conscious effort. When realignment begins, new pathways need to be created. But creating new pathways while old ones still exist creates neural conflict. The brain doesn't know which path to follow, and this confusion is interpreted as an error, as a systemic failure. That's why anxiety increases. That's why decisions become difficult. That's why there's that feeling of being stuck between two realities, because literally, it is. What most people don't realize is that the brain and the quantum field operate in different languages. The brain operates in linearity, cause and effect, past and future, right and wrong. The field operates on possibilities, quantum collapse, simultaneous potentials, instantaneous reorganization. When the field begins realignment, it's not following the brain's logic. It's following the logic of frequency, and frequency doesn't negotiate. It simply is. So when relationships end, jobs end, or structures crumble, the brain looks for someone to blame. He needs someone or something to hold accountable. Why accept that the universe is simply rearranging the pieces to create a better reality? This doesn't make sense to the logical mind, but it makes perfect sense to the soul. Because the soul knows what the brain has forgotten. Chaos is not collapse. It is reconstruction. And the biggest challenge in this process isn't the chaos itself. It's convincing the brain to stop fighting it. Because as long as there is mental resistance, there will be emotional suffering. And as long as there is emotional suffering, realignment will be interpreted as torture, when in fact it is liberation. The key is to reprogram the neural response, to train the brain to recognize that discomfort is not danger, that uncertainty is not a threat, that change is not the end, and that requires something radical. Trusting the process even when it doesn't make logical sense. Because the quantum field doesn't need the brain's approval to act. It will act anyway. The only real choice is resist or allow. What about resistance? It doesn't prevent realignment. It just makes the process longer, more painful, more confusing. Allowing, on the other hand, speeds everything up. It smooths the transition. It transforms chaos into flow. But allowing requires something that goes against all survival programming, letting go of control. And that's where the real transformation begins. Breathe. Feel the weight of it. Because what comes next will explain why the chaos lasts longer than it should. Resistance to realignment creates an energetic paradox. The more one fights against chaos, the longer it lasts. And this is because resistance is essentially a vibrational statement. When a person resists what is happening, trying to control, manipulate, or reverse the process, they are sending a clear message to the quantum field. I don't trust this. I don't allow this. I want to go back. And the field, being absolutely neutral and responsive, responds exactly to the emitted frequency. If the frequency is resistance, the field maintains a state of resistance. If the frequency is fight, the field reflects more situations to fight against. Not through punishment, but through resonance. It's like trying to swim against the current. The water isn't trying to drown anyone, it simply flows. But if you insist on swimming in the opposite direction, you get tired, frustrated, and eventually stop moving forward. The same goes for vibrational realignment. When someone tries to force a relationship that has already ended energetically to come back, resistance creates more emotional chaos. When someone tries to hold on to a job that no longer resonates with their frequency, resistance generates more professional frustration. When one tries to hold on to financial structures based on scarcity, while the new identity calls for abundance, resistance creates more monetary instability. Because the field isn't trying to take anything away. It's trying to make space for the new, for the aligned, for what truly matches the frequency being activated. But as long as our hands are clinging to the old, there is no way to receive the new. Neville Goddard used to say something profound. You can't change your reality by trying to fix the old one. You have to assume the identity of the new one and let the old one die. And the old man's death? It's chaos, it's not dramatic. It's not violent. It's simply the natural collapse of everything that no longer resonates. I'll tell you Sarah's story. At 36, she lost her corporate job of 11 years. That same week, her boyfriend of 4 years broke up with her. A few days later, her car broke down, and the repairs cost more than she had in her bank account. Sarah went into a complete panic. She sent out over 40 resumes trying to get back into the same field. She sent desperate messages to her ex begging to talk. She took out loans to maintain a lifestyle she could no longer afford. She was resisting with all her might. What about chaos? It only got worse. And so it was. 3 months of pure agony, depression, insomnia, a constant feeling of being punished. Until one day, exhausted, she simply stopped. He stopped sending out resumes. He stopped trying to salvage the relationship. He stopped pretending he could maintain his old life, and he said aloud, "I don't know what's coming next, but I trust that something is rearranging itself." 3 weeks later, a friend mentioned a freelance position. Sarah had never considered freelancing. It was too unstable. But she accepted, and 6 months later, she was earning twice her corporate salary, working from home, with freedom she never imagined possible. The relationship? She realized she was with that man out of fear of being alone, not out of true love. And the broken car? It forced her to use public transportation, where she met people who became clients and friends. After going through it all, Sarah said, "I thought I was being destroyed, but I was being recalibrated, and I fought it for months, turning days of adjustment into months of suffering." This is the difference between allowing and resisting. And if you're experiencing something similar right now, leave a comment. I'm allowing the realignment, not just for you to read later, but for the field to record this frequency, and for others going through the same process to feel they're not alone. But here's the trick. The human mind loves to create stories about why chaos is happening. It's because I'm not good enough. It's because I didn't deserve it. It's because the universe is testing me. None of these stories are true, but they all prolong the process. Because each story carries an emotional charge, and each emotional charge generates a frequency, and each frequency attracts more of the same experience. So the person gets stuck in a loop. Chaos breeds fear. Fear breeds resistance. Resistance breeds more chaos. And the longer this loop lasts, the more the person believes they're being punished. When in reality, they're just trapped in their own vibrational friction. The way out is not to fight anymore. It's to stop fighting. And that doesn't mean giving up. It means letting go. Let go of the need to understand everything now. Let go of the illusion of control. Let go of the idea that chaos is a mistake, because he is not. It is the process. And trying to skip the process is like trying to pick fruit from a tree that hasn't yet blossomed. No matter how much effort you put in, the ripening time is inevitable. Realignment has its own pace, its own intelligence. And it won't rush just because the mind wants it to, but it can be softened, accelerated even, not by force but by surrender. Surrender is not weakness. It is vibrational wisdom. It's understanding that the field knows things the conscious mind doesn't, that it's rearranging variables that aren't even visible yet, and that trusting this process is the only way to get through it without destroying yourself along the way. Because resisting chaos doesn't eliminate it. It only transforms realignment into suffering, and allow turns chaos into a portal. Quantum realignment isn't invisible. It leaves traces, energetic signals that most people interpret as problems, when in fact they're confirmation that the field is working. And recognizing these signs changes everything, because when someone understands what's happening, the experience stops being terrifying and becomes enlightening. So what are these signs? The first is the simultaneous collapse of multiple areas of life. It's not just the relationship that ends. It's the relationship, the job, and the emotional health, all at once. And the mind screams, why? Why all at once? Because the field doesn't reorganize by parts. It reorganizes by frequency. If the frequency has changed, everything that was supported by the old frequency must adjust or leave. And usually, it leaves quickly, abruptly, as if the universe had hit a reset button. This isn't bad luck. It's vibrational efficiency. The field is clearing everything at once because maintaining structures incompatible with the new frequency would require more energy than removing them. So it chooses the most efficient route: rapid collapse, clear space, and aligned reconstruction. The second sign is the intensification of emotions. Suddenly, everything seems amplified. Sadness turns to despair. Frustration turns to anger. Fear turns to panic, not because something external has worsened, but because the nervous system is processing decades of stored emotional patterns. Realignment doesn't just remove external structures. It purges old emotional energy that was stuck in the body, and this purging, it's visceral. It's like squeezing a sponge full of dirty water. The water needs to come out so the sponge can absorb clean water. And while it's coming out, it looks chaotic, messy, uncomfortable, but it is necessary. And here's the thing. This emotional intensification isn't regression. It's release. The body is finally releasing what it's held in for years. Small traumas that were never processed, hurts that were swallowed, anger that was suppressed. Everything rises to the surface at the same time. Not to destroy, to be cleansed. The third sign is the spontaneous distancing of people. Friends of years begin to feel alien. Conversations that once flowed now feel empty. And there's a growing feeling of, I don't belong here anymore. This isn't rejection. It's social recalibration. Because when the frequency shifts, connections based on the old frequency no longer resonate. Not by conscious choice, but by vibrational mismatch. It's as if the field is creating space for new connections that match the new version of the person. And that can be painful, especially when it involves people who were important. But the field isn't removing people to cause pain. It's removing misalignment to allow for true connections. The fourth sign is chronic mental confusion. Clarity disappears. Simple decisions seem impossible. There's a constant fog in the mind, as if the brain has been shut down and restarted but hasn't finished loading yet. And actually, that's exactly what's happening. The brain is literally reorganizing itself. New neural networks are being formed. Old thought patterns are being dissolved. And during this transition, there's a kind of gray zone where nothing seems to make sense. But this mental blankness isn't a failure. It's cognitive recalibration. And trying to force clarity during this phase is counterproductive. It's like shaking a glass of cloudy water and hoping it will become clear. It doesn't work. The water only becomes clear when it stops being stirred and the sediment settles naturally. The same with the mind during realignment. The fifth sign, and perhaps the most disturbing, is a loss of interest in things that once brought you pleasure. Hobbies that were once passionate now seem dull. Goals that once drove a person now seem irrelevant. And there's a haunting question that constantly echoes, what do I really want? And the answer? It won't come, at least not right away, because the field isn't just removing what doesn't serve. It's revealing what's authentic. And often, what a person thought they wanted was just social conditioning disguised as personal desire. This lack of purpose isn't depression. It's disidentification. It's the process of letting go of who you thought you should be to discover who you really are. Wallace Wattles wrote something that fits perfectly here. You must rid your mind of all the old things before you can think clearly about the new. And realignment does just that. It removes the noise. It destroys the illusions, and in the silence that remains, truth emerges. And there is a sixth sign that few people notice: the feeling of being out of time. Days pass without a clear record. Weeks blur together. There's a disconnect with linear time, as if the person is floating between two realities. This happens because realignment operates outside of linear time. The quantum field doesn't follow chronology. It operates on simultaneous layers of possibility. And when someone is in the middle of this process, their perception of time becomes distorted. It's not pathological dissociation. It's dimensional transition. But here's the secret. All of these signs, however uncomfortable, are indicators of progress, not of destruction, of transformation. And the more someone recognizes these signs as part of the process, rather than evidence of failure, the faster the realignment is completed, because the field doesn't need perfection. It needs permission. Permission to disassemble, permission to rearrange, permission to recalibrate. And when this permission is consciously given, chaos ceases to be an enemy and becomes an ally. Feel it. These signs are not failures. They are compasses. And now comes the practical part. Understanding realignment intellectually is important, but it's not enough. Because when chaos is happening, when the bill is overdue, when the relationship is over, when anxiety is at its peak, the mind doesn't want theory. It wants tools, something practical, something that works, something that turns chaos into something navigable. And there's a specific technique for this. It's not traditional meditation. It's not repetitive affirmations. It's something different. This is what can be called quantum anchoring. And it works like this. First, recognize that chaos is not the enemy. It seems obvious after everything that's been said here, but in a moment of panic, the brain forgets. So the first step is literal. Out loud or mentally say, this chaos is not punishment. It is recalibration. It's not an empty statement. It's neural redirection, because the brain responds to language, and when someone names what's happening correctly, the nervous system relaxes, just a little, but enough to create space. Second, feel the body. Don't think about him, feel, where is the tension? In the chest? In the throat? In the stomach? Place your hand there, literally, physically, and breathe into that point, not to fix anything, just to be present with the discomfort. Because resistance to chaos happens first in the body. And when someone stops running from physical sensation, something changes. Stagnant energy begins to move, and movement is always better than blockage. Third, visualize a spiral, not a straight line, not a circle, an upward spiral. Imagine the energy in your body slowly swirling upward like smoke rising from a candle. No need to force it, just visualize. Because visualization activates neural networks that reorganize frequency. And as this spiral rises, repeat internally. I allow realignment. I trust the field. I release control, not once, repeat like a mantra, not to convince the universe, but to reprogram one's own internal resistance. Fourth, and this is the step most people skip, be grateful for the chaos. Yes. Thank you. Not in a fake way. Not pretending that everything is fine. But recognizing that chaos is the mechanism. It's the tool. It's what's clearing the way. Thank you for removing what no longer serves. Thank you for creating space. Thank you for realigning me. Gratitude isn't toxic positivity. It's vibrational intelligence. Because when someone expresses gratitude, their frequency instantly shifts. They stop being a victim and become a co-creator, and the field responds to that. Fifth, let go of the need to see immediate results. This is the hardest part, because the mind wants evidence. It wants proof. It wants to know when the chaos will end. But realignment doesn't work on linear timelines. It works in layers. And trying to force the process to speed up is like pulling a flower out of the ground to see if the roots are growing. Destroys everything. So the final step is to surrender to the weather in the field. And this is done through a simple affirmation. I trust in the perfect timing of the universe, not because it's pretty, but because it's true. The field knows things the conscious mind doesn't. It's calculating invisible variables, and rushing the process only creates more friction. Now there's a sixth step, a hack that speeds up this whole process, and it's surprisingly simple, but few people do it. Every day when you wake up, before you pick up your phone, before you check your messages, before you go into automatic mode, put your hand on your heart and ask a single question out loud. What is trying to be born through me today? And then, listen. Don't force the answer. Don't seek immediate clarity. Just listen to the silence, because the field responds to those who ask sincerely, and often the answer doesn't come in words. It comes in impulses, in sudden intuitions, in small actions that seem random but days later reveal themselves to have been perfectly orchestrated. This daily 30-second ritual creates a conscious bridge between the person and the field. And the more this bridge is strengthened, the smoother the realignment becomes, because the field doesn't need to scream through the chaos when someone is listening in the little things. The secret of this technique is that it does not eliminate chaos, it changes the relationship with chaos. And when the relationship changes, the experience changes. Chaos remains chaos. Things are still reorganizing, but instead of being something that paralyzes, it becomes something that moves. It's like surfing a wave instead of being swept along by it. The force of the water is the same, but the experience is completely different. And the more one practices this anchoring, not once but daily, especially during peak emotional moments, the faster the nervous system learns that chaos is not death. It's rebirth. And rebirth always feels chaotic. Because something is dying while something new is being born. And the transition? It's messy, painful, strange, but on the other side, there's a version of the person that didn't exist before. A version that no longer fits into old structures. That no longer resonates with old frequencies. That no longer accepts old limitations. What about this version? She's worth every second of chaos. Because chaos did not come to destroy, came to free. Quantum realignment doesn't require permission. It happens when your internal frequency shifts and your external reality needs to match. And yes, it's uncomfortable, scary. It often feels like everything is falling apart at once. But now there's clarity. It's not a collapse. It's a clever reorganization of the field to create coherence with the new version that's emerging. Every ending, every loss, every structure that collapses is removing what was preventing the next level. Not as punishment, as preparation. Here's the biggest lesson. Chaos isn't the problem. Resistance to chaos is the problem. Chaos is neutral. It's a process of recalibration. But resistance turns that process into prolonged suffering. The only real choice is resist and prolong, or allow and accelerate. And allowing means trusting that the field knows things the logical mind cannot see, that the void created by chaos will be filled with something aligned, elevated and true. So right now, say out loud, I allow quantum realignment. Feel it. Go to the comments now and write, I allow quantum realignment. To send this statement out into the field, to activate this frequency, and for others who are in the same process to feel that they are not alone. If this video brought you clarity, please leave a like. This will help this message reach those who need it most right now, and subscribe to the channel to continue learning how quantum physics and spirituality connect in practice. There's a video that perfectly complements all of this. I'll leave it on the end screen to delve deeper into this topic. I'll meet you there.